Hi, I'm Chris Shaffrey, the president of the AANS, and I want to invite you to Boston for our annual meeting, which is going to be held on April 25th through 29th, 2020. The theme of the meeting is the world of neurosurgery. It's going to be an exciting, informative, compelling meeting, and I strongly encourage you all to attend.
Welcome to the Neurosurgery Podcast. I'm Mike Wang, and I'm here with my co-host, JP Kolcun. We are here to discuss all things neurosurgical.
Hi, this is JP Kolcun, a resident in neurosurgery at Rush University. Please note that this is not a CME event, and the opinions and statements made in this podcast do not reflect those of any institution or professional organization. Now, let's get started. Okay, today I am joined by Damian Brusko, a fourth-year medical student at the University of Miami. Unfortunately, my co-host today, Dr. Mike Wang, will not be joining us. I think he's off inventing a robot somewhere. So today it's just going to be me and you, Damian. How you doing? Welcome to the Neurosurgery Podcast.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, John Paul.
Great. So like I said, Damian's a fourth-year medical student at the University of Miami. That's where we first met, worked together while I was still a student there. And he is currently the president of the University of Miami Neurosurgery Interest Group. He has been for the past year. He's helping running that club for the students at Miami. And so I thought he'd be a great guest for today's topic, which is how to get involved as a medical student when you're interested in neurosurgery. So, Damian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to this role at Miami, and, I don't know, what kind of things the club is doing for students down at your school?
Sure. So I got involved in the club 2 years ago, just on the executive board, and then worked my way up through the positions, was vice president last year, and then became president this year in my fourth year. And so the club is really structured that you start from the bottom and work your way up towards the top and gain experience, not only with managing the club activities, but also with interacting with the residents, interacting with the faculty, and so that by the time you're a fourth-year student, you can be a resource for the younger students that are now coming in to join the club.
So take us back to when you were a younger student then, first getting started with the neurosurgery department at Miami. I remember we met after you attended a lunchtime lecture given, of all people, by Dr. Wang. That was back when you were a first or second year, I think, in school. And so just tell us kind of what was your process getting involved with the department, what sparked your interest, and how did you start meeting people?
Sure. So I got involved with the Department of Neurosurgery in January of my first year of medical school. I made sure to get all the academics straightened out, make sure I had my study routines down for the fall semester. And then made sure that I was ready to hit the ground running in terms of research for the spring. Now,
that's pretty early. Did you come into medical school knowing you wanted to do neurosurgery?
Yeah, pretty much from fairly early on in undergrad, actually. I had pretty much decided that I was going to be going into neurosurgery.
Okay. So then you had that goal in mind. In what ways did you get organized and start meeting people in the department?
So the first person I actually contacted, and I had some experience as an undergraduate student down there in Miami as well, was with Dr. Rick Komatar. He was always, incredibly happy and sought out students to come shadow him, get on research projects. And so I sent him an email, and he was incredibly happy to reply, responded to me very quickly, and set me up with one of the residents. And then from there, started working with one of the residents. He said, "Hey, I've got a couple of projects. Which one are you interested in?" And hopped on one. And my role at that time was really just data collection. But that's really the only skill I had, and even that I was just learning the basics of. So really kind of start small and then work your way up.
So Dr. Komatar, of course, the program director down at Miami, I think he's still the faculty advisor for the club as well, right?
Correct, yeah. He's been definitely a big part of our growth in the last several years, certainly in the time that I've been there, and for the growth of our program as well.
So yeah, very fortunate to identify a mentor early. Someone who can help you not only get started learning how to conduct research, but maybe serve as an introduction to other people in the department. So maybe you could talk about your process getting to know the other residents, meeting some of the other attendings in the department as well. Just, you're a new medical student, you don't know anyone, and these are all the people you need to meet to set yourself up for success on your clinical rotations, eventually asking for letters way down the line. You're a brand new medical student, you don't know anyone. How do you start that process?
Yeah, so I think identifying a neurosurgical mentor early was, I think is critical and was certainly, instrumental in the opportunities that I've been afforded over the years. And so I think the best way to go about it, is just to kind of get involved, whether it's through the student interest group like we have, and then also just going in and shadowing. If you're interested in neurosurgery or even just considering neurosurgery, we always encourage students to just get into the operating room. That's where you meet the residents, you meet the attendings. And it can seem a little bit daunting, but as a first, second year student, you're not expected to really know much other than be present and be interested. And the more interest you show, the residents will certainly pay attention to that and really help you out. And a number of the residents there were very helpful in just introducing me to people, and you work on a research project with them, and then you do good work with them, and they say, oh, hey, by the way, Dr. So-and-so, I've got this great medical student here, Damian, and would introduce me to him. And so I think that went a long way in just building connections over the course of my time.
Yeah, the operating room is a great place not just to get exposed to the work of neurosurgery, but as you said, meet people at all levels, the residents, the attendings, and kind of see what they do from day to day. So maybe you could tell us a bit more about the formal structured activities that the club in Miami has. I know various medical schools may or may not have an organized neurosurgery club. Some of these may be affiliated with national organizations. So maybe for students at a place that don't have a club, you can kind of describe what you're doing at Miami right now, maybe give them an idea for how they could establish something like that at their own program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're very fortunate here to have a very solid foundation, organizational foundation for us. We've led by Dr. Komatar, and we have students every year that are constantly interested in keeping the club going and participating in our events. So we have two main annual events: the resident panel, which actually was just held about a week ago. It's always in December, where we get as many residents as are available, and then Dr. Komatar loves to lead it, and we also get other attendings that are around and eager to help as well. And we always have pizza or some sort of dinner for the students as well as a little bit of an incentive. And then it's really just an open forum. Students can ask whatever questions they would like to the residents, to the faculty, just about the overall process, what it's like being a neurosurgeon, how to get involved. And so it's a really great networking opportunity as well, so that afterwards the residents always stick around and are available to answer any other questions or for students to ask about any research projects they need help with. Then our spring event is Neurosurgery Night, and this is a somewhat similar event, more of a networking opportunity, and we also give an overview of the overall program, the president. So this year will be me giving a talk just on the overview of how to get into neurosurgery, what some of the MASH statistics are for the senior or for the third and fourth year students, and some more tailored advice kind of related to sub-Is for those third year students that are going to be hitting the sub-I trail and then going on interviews.
So let's put you through your paces and maybe rehearse a little bit for that presentation you're going to give. Let's break it down year by year. Shoot from the hip, some general advice. You're a brand new first year medical student. What are your goals for that year if you want to match in neurosurgery? How would you get involved?
So I think first off, handle your academics. Make sure you have a great study routine and you starting to already excel in your classes. I think that's key. If you don't have the grades, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to match. And then once you have that, you want to try and get in the OR shadow. If you're, still deciding between neurosurgery and maybe a couple other specialties, go and shadow them all, including neurosurgery, and really see which one you like. And then research opportunities. Try and pick up one project. Try and develop the basics, data collection, and then go from there. Chances are that if you do, really good work, you get the data collection done in a much faster time than a resident expects you to, more than likely they'll give you another project to do. And that's really how you start building your CV.
Okay, so then keep going. Keep telling us, I guess, what was your strategy as you ascended through medical school, and just how would you generalize that for students at different levels?
So I think then going into second year, this is where you can really begin to identify a mentor. You may have worked with a couple different attendings or have met some of them in your time shadowing as a first year. And so you really want to pick one mentor and try and learn as much as you can from them. Spend time in their clinics, spend time in the operating room, work on multiple research projects with them, and again, get in the OR and meet other attendings as well. That's where you'll pick up new projects. You'll kind of start developing some skills and just basic knowledge that'll further benefit you. And then going forward, third year is more of the same. Now at this point, you should hopefully be starting to write some papers and building the different skill sets that it takes to be productive academically, and start gearing up for thinking about where you want to go in your sub-Is and what tier applicant you are. Something Dr. Komatar always does with the third year students is meets with every single one of us in about January to look at our CVs, see what caliber applicant we are, and that way we can tailor our sub-Is to see where we'll be most successful.
Okay, I remember when you were a second year student, you were already pretty involved, not just helping out with the club, but you were on a bunch of papers. We did some work together, but then it came time for your STEP studying season. So that can get a little awkward, not just exams in school, but the big test, step one for everyone, the great equalizer. How did you approach talking to maybe some of the residents, some of the attendings with whom you had ongoing projects when you had to tell them, hey, I have other things I have to focus on right now? Was that a difficult conversation?
Yeah, certainly. I think, especially the residency attendings, they're also trying to publish as much as they can, and they rely on the students for, a lot of the legwork to a certain extent. And so I tried to do as much research as I could in the early step study period through the spring, but then as it got closer to dedicated, at a certain point you really just kind of have to buckle down and talk to the residents and say, hey, I've tried to wrap up as much as I could. I've gotten it, the project to this point, but I need a month off or so to get through dedicated. And the residents were there at one time too. They understand that step one is a huge step for you, and so they were very understanding about the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to blow your score on step one for maybe one or two more papers, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so now tell us about where you are in the process currently and kind of what your thoughts are about, I guess, the interview trail and decisions you made along the way that prepared you, or maybe things you would have done differently.
Yeah, so right now I'm in a little over halfway along the interview trail, and it's been a blast. The last 6 months, even dating back to the summer when sub-Is started, it's really been a whirlwind, but it's really been a lot of fun. It's the first time that you're really dedicated to doing neurosurgery for an extended period of time, and so I think it really solidified my desire to pursue this career. And I've met a lot of great people. The sub-Is that I rotated with over the summer, I'm still really good friends with, and now I'm meeting some of the same people and even new friends along the way on the interview trail, and really getting to travel all over the country has been a lot of fun as well. Definitely expensive, and can be a little exhausting, but on the whole, it's been a really exceptional experience.
For some students who might be listening who are getting ready to transition from third to fourth year, can you talk a little bit about how many programs people are visiting these days, just kind of what to expect with all that travel?
Yeah, so I think kind of backing up to sub-Is now, it seems like more kids than I expected were doing like 3 away rotations in addition to their home. So wow. I would say that the average is still about 2, but certainly more than I expected that I've talked to, we did 3 away rotations. So something to consider if you have the time and the opportunities. But I think as far as interviews go, application-wise, most people are applying to anywhere between 40 to 70, I want to say. I haven't talked to too many kids on this overall specifics. There were 113 programs, I think, this year, so about half. A lot of that's going to be tailored to what schools you're looking for and what caliber applicant you are, and a lot of that comes down to having frank conversations with your mentors and the faculty at your home institution to kind of gauge where you're at. I think that's an important part. And then for interviews, I think most people are trying to go on about 15 interviews. Those that are couples matching are into the 20s. That obviously makes things a little more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you look at the trend for the past few years, people have been doing more and more away rotations. I know someone my year who did 4 outside of his medical school. and also more and more interviews just to try to, increase those odds. But I think over the past few years, it's been approaching the point of physical restraint. There's not enough days on the calendar, but people are still trying to max out. It gets expensive.
Yeah, I think it's several $1,000s worth, and it, even staying in Airbnb, some kids are trying to save some money there, but, and flights can be really expensive. And a lot of the times you're booking flights, no more than 2 weeks ahead of time, because either interviews are coming, you get, an invite and then the interviews a couple of weeks later, or you're trying to shuffle around programs and shuffle around days to try and maximize the programs you can go to. It certainly can get expensive.
Yeah, I think that's one of those areas where, as you mentioned a few times, having a good, frank conversation with an advisor you could trust can help you kind of tailor your application process so you don't just, shoot broadly for every program in the country and take every interview that comes up, and you end up, booking rooms and flights to 30 places across the country when you'll never make it. It's just a great way to increase the debt we all already come out of school with. So kind of going into the process with open eyes can help alleviate some of that. So now, since we've kind of talked about the general approach to the different stages of a medical student's process towards applying into neurosurgery, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the specific organized activities that you with the club at Miami have done? Maybe some of our listeners have similar programs at their medical schools. Maybe they can take an idea and start something in their own program.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the most important activities that was started during my time within our interest group was what's called Gray Matters. And it was a weekly lecture series hosted by one of our fifth-year residents. And each week was a different neurosurgical topic. We covered from cranial to spine to pediatrics to neuroanatomy, basically anything neurosurgical related. And a lot of it was at a much higher level than that would be expected of a medical student. But that was really the idea. It was to prepare third-year students for sub-Is, to get first and second years just interested in all the cool and crazy things neurosurgery has to offer. As from a resident perspective too, I think the mentorship aspect was something they really enjoyed, just getting to lecture the students for an hour or so on one evening. And so I think that was something that was really instrumental in not only growing our club, but also in just growing our interest in neurosurgery and even growing my own knowledge base just by attending.
Great. Well, Damian, it's been great to see you again. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Hopefully some of this information will help our listeners across the country in medical school as they progress towards their own application into neurosurgery. Thanks.
All right, thank you for having me.
Cheers.